Okay, so this is interview number 4 with Business Professional. So we're just going to start by overviewing your customer archetype to see where you really fall and how you're going to help us develop our business model canvas into an effective play world. So if you wouldn't mind just introducing yourself, explaining your credentials, and where you've worked recently and currently.
Sure. My name is Michael, and I have been working for the past 25 years in the financial services industry. I am an experienced investor. I've invested in both public companies and non-public companies, and I have a very good understanding of how companies should be valued and how they should consider their financial health. And I think I can provide some good context, particularly when thinking about investing in a startup company.
Mm-hmm. And if you wouldn't mind explaining where you have worked and in what business aspects of those places.
Sure. So my career has been in financial services. So I currently work for JPMorgan Chase, which is a global financial company with multiple businesses. Prior to that, I worked for a company called ING Barings. And prior to that, I worked at Merrill Lynch. And I had always been within a finance organization within those companies, and currently I work within an audit function at JPMorgan Chase.
And can you explain what you did before audit?
Sure. Before audit, I was the controller for many of the businesses within JPMorgan Chase, so I was very familiar with the financials of each of those businesses, very familiar with the business strategies, very familiar with how businesses generated revenue and generated profitability, and very familiar with how businesses would disclose their type of information publicly in order to generate more revenue and become more profitable for the company.
Okay, and just speaker notes here, I did overview the presentation as it was a pitch to Mike here, and he has some notes that he'd like to share that we're going to continue to use to develop our solutions.
So let me pull up my notes for a second. All right, so the first note was around the valuation for this particular company and the expected round of funding. If I read this correctly, the company is looking to raise $5 million.
$1 million at a $5 million valuation.
Sorry about that. Raise $1 million, valuing the company at $5 million. And I think as a potential investor, what you want to understand is how the company makes money. Have they made any money? What is their expense base? What is their expected profit margin? And importantly, what are the competitors in this particular industry? And then depending upon those factors, try and determine if in fact you would value the company at $5 million. And to do that, you can look at some type of multiple on the amount of revenue they generate. So say for example, they generate very simply $1 million of revenue, a multiple of 5 would be $5 million valuation.
Is that a typical evaluation in your space?
That is one way to value a company, particularly a startup company.
Mm-hmm.
Now, a valuation of 5 to 1 is probably not realistic for a startup. It's usually 10 to 1, 20 to 1, 30 to 1,
mm-hmm.
because you're not necessarily investing in the current outlook, but you're considering the future potential of the company.
Mm-hmm. So hypothetically, just coming to you with a little bit more background knowledge, on a post-revenue basis, they're using not a 10 to 1, 35,000 to 1 basis because they've currently made $600 in the 2 months in a very saturated market.
So how long have they been operational?
It was 2 months that he said.
2 months?
Mm-hmm.
For how much? $600?
$600. And he did not clarify if that was $600 profit or $600 gross revenue.
I'm going to guess that's $600 of gross revenue over 2 months. So that, if you just simply annualize that, that's 3,000. That is
3,600.
Yeah, 3,000. It took me a second. 3,600 annually. So to have a $5 million valuation on that gross revenue is a very generous valuation, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not clear to me that they'll even be able to sustain a solid revenue stream because, one, I don't really understand what their marketing pitch is and how to acquire clients. And it seems like this market is a little bit saturated with many other similar types of companies.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not clear to me what this company has to offer the public or the consumer to trade cards through their particular website.
Mm-hmm.
So at this point, on that revenue stream, if you were simply just to annualize that, it appears as if a $5 million valuation is a very generous valuation. And again, since they haven't really provided much information about how sustainable this business model is in light of the competition, I think it's more unrealistic for them to be able to raise $1 million on a $5 million valuation.
Mm-hmm. And just more specifically what we were talking about before, the $88 million that they said if they only get 10% of the market.
Yes.
What are you kind of thinking about that? I think their direct quote was, if we just harness 10% of the card buying market, and from their research, they said that the average consumer of these trading cards purchase 3 cards a month, each card being $1 to $4. So if they harness 10% of the total market of trading card members and they all bought 3 cards per month, they would be generating $88 million annually.
Well, I think to have 10% market share in any market is very, very difficult,
mm-hmm.
especially for a startup company. And they haven't really been clear in terms of what their competitive advantage is,
mm-hmm.
meaning why would individuals come to their website to trade cards
mm-hmm.
versus all the other different websites that exist on the market today.
Mm-hmm.
And what I would have liked to have seen is something more in the context of a marketing strategy, an incentive strategy to bring clients to their website.
Mm-hmm.
And my theory would be if they can get clients to their website, maybe they can get repeat business.
Mm-hmm.
But they have to come with some proposal in terms of what their competitive advantage is, meaning why would clients come to their website over another website? And I also don't believe the margin on this product is very large. And the margin is very small, so they don't make a lot of money per transaction.
I think it's 5%. They take 5% transaction fee.
They take a 5% transaction fee. And the next startup who comes along and takes 4.5% transaction fee
mm-hmm.
is going to pull all their business towards their business. And then the next one is 4%. It's
mm-hmm.
going to pull it. So I think what you're going to see in this market space is all these different companies competing on price. So beyond price, I believe they need to come with some other interesting reason why consumers would use their website versus a competitor's website to trade cards.
It's very interesting, that strategy of going from a startup and offering a separate advantage is somewhat what they did in reverse, because there's already a well-established company called StockX that is currently now trading cards where you send your card as a seller after it's sold to a third-party warehouse when it's then authenticated and then shipped out to the customer. That's offering a new improvement to the market where there's technically friction because of all unauthentic cards. Essentially, Playworld is coming in and just cutting that bit out. So they're essentially not even bringing anything new to the market, and they're offering less than multi-billion-dollar competitors.
Yes. So again, for these startup companies, it's important that they really identify their target market and what improvements they're providing compared to the competitors. Mm-hmm. So if StockX already has a broad client base, if they already have a recognizable name, if they are also already have the infrastructure to ship goods, authenticate goods, and then provide the goods to the consumer, if they have a mechanism to support the payment, I think it's going to be very difficult for companies to come in and enter that marketplace without something new or different.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think just competing on price is enough. I think you have to bring something to that marketplace to attract consumers.
Mm-hmm.
And then I wouldn't overlook the importance regarding authenticating the product, because companies could be bankrupt very quickly if in fact they don't have a strong authentication process, because consumers would turn very quickly, particularly with social media, if things did not go well with that. So, imagine you're a consumer and you buy a couple $1,000s worth of cards, and all of a sudden those cards show up and you pay for them, and then you bring them to a third party, and all of a sudden they demonstrate that they are fraudulent cards. Well, you're going to go back to this company, reclaim your money back. You'll probably post something on social media, word will get out, and this company will not do well. So I think they have to be very clear about their investments around the expertise to be able to be certain these cards are authenticated.
And as you said, you've invested in many startups and seen many aspects of business. What did you specifically think about their plan to not only be only online based, but also reach out to all near card stores in the area and encourage card stores to list on their website, while the card stores already have websites of their own and through Carousel? What do you think about that business strategy?
Well, I think the first thing, their business strategy of only being online makes sense, because today online is the least expensive way. You don't have a high overhead. And also online is generally how people like to transact. People are very digitally savvy. They want transactions to be relatively seamless. And today everyone sort of has grown up in an Amazon-like world, so they expect and they're comfortable with transacting online. So I think that part of the strategy makes some sense. The second part of the strategy around going to sort of the brick and mortar sellers of cards and have those companies list their products on their website. Again, I don't know why somebody would do that without some compelling reason. And to the best of my knowledge, this company has not really shown a compelling reason for these card stores, who already have well-established relationships with other competitors, to turn around and use this company, either in addition to or solely to resell their cards. So I think they're really missing a key component as to the question, why would someone want to use their website over the well-established websites that exist today?
So essentially they're not bringing anything to a market that essentially has no friction.
The friction, there is no friction when things go well. There's a lot of friction when things don't go well. So if you think about the frictionless trade transaction, consumer, website, mail the card, authenticate the card, deliver the card, cash moves, that could be seamless. But what happens when something goes wrong in the shipment of the card? What happens when the card is incorrectly authenticated and needs to be returned? Have they thought through the overhead cost associated with that, and do they have the right infrastructure?
They're not even establishing the middle part. They're just going directly from who owns the card right to who bought it. And from further research, this is just another thing, as you were talking about like seamless transactions, to actually purchase a card, all of the cards are essentially mock auctions on the website. When you want to buy a card, you have to send an email to the seller asking them if they still have the card, and then they have to get back to you in 24 hours. And we did our own experiments where we asked for 5 cards and only 2 sellers got back to us within 24 hours. We thought that was extremely friction, and
so
just looking
that does not appear to be a very good customer experience, right? And what you obviously want to have is the best customer experience possible. And
customer obsessed.
Yes, and you don't want your customers having to take more clicks or communicate with more emails than necessary. So if the model is to communicate out to a potential seller to determine if they even have the card with the expectation of a 24-hour turnaround, that does not seem like a good customer experience at all. What you want to do is have your customer access a website, know what the inventory is, make a bid or make an offer to purchase. The offer is accepted. Once it's accepted, the transaction then should take place within minutes. Move the payment, mail the card, authenticate the card, deliver the card.
All right. I think we've noticed a few different flaws in the business plan,
Yes.
and that's what we hope to fix. So thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome. Good luck.